What if I told you that Henry Ford, the man who revolutionized cars for the common people, bought a luxury car company from the very man who once sued him? Stay with me, because this story of revenge, redemption, and really expensive automobiles changed the auto industry forever. It's February 4th, 1922, and Henry Ford just did something nobody saw coming. The man who famously said you could have a Model T in any color you wanted, as long as it was black, just bought Lincoln Motor Company, one of America's premier luxury car makers, and he paid $8 million for it. But here's where this gets interesting. The man selling Lincoln to Ford, his name is Henry Leland, and Henry Leland absolutely despised Henry Ford. Let's rewind to understand why. Back in 1902, a young Henry Ford was trying to start his second car company. His first one had failed. He needed investors and credibility. Enter Henry Leland, a precision manufacturing genius, already famous for building the best engines in Detroit. Leland agreed to help, and the investors brought him in. But almost immediately, Leland and Ford clashed. Ford wanted simple, cheap cars for regular people. Leland demanded precision, quality, and luxury. Ford wanted speed in manufacturing. Leland wanted perfection in engineering. The tension became so severe that in 1902, Ford was forced out of his own company. The investors sided with Leland. They renamed it Cadillac, and Leland built it into one of America's most prestigious car brands. Ford was humiliated, but he was also determined. The next year, in 1903, Ford started over with the Ford Motor Company, and this time he did it his way. No luxury, no perfectionism, just affordable, reliable cars for everyday Americans. In 1908, he introduced the Model T, and it changed everything. The Model T was revolutionary. It cost just $825 when most cars cost thousands. Ford perfected the assembly line, cutting production time from 12 hours per car to just 93 minutes. By 1918, half of all cars in America were Model Ts. Henry Ford became one of the richest men in the world. Meanwhile, Henry Leland had left Cadillac, and in 1917, at age 74, he started his own company. He named it Lincoln after his hero, Abraham Lincoln. Leland built luxury cars with unmatched precision. These weren't transportation. They were masterpieces on wheels. Presidents and millionaires drove Lincolns. But there was a problem. Leland was a brilliant engineer, not a brilliant businessman. And in 1921, America hit a recession. Luxury car sales plummeted. People who could afford Lincolns were scared to spend money. Lincoln Motor Company was drowning in debt. The company went into receivership. It was going to be sold at auction. And guess who showed up to buy it? Henry Ford walked into that auction with $8 million and a smile. The man who'd been kicked out of his own company by Henry Leland was about to buy Leland's company. Now, you might think this is where Ford got his revenge, that he fired Leland and destroyed everything he'd built. But here's where Henry Ford surprised everyone. He kept Leland on. He told him to keep making luxury cars exactly the way he'd been making them. Ford didn't want to change Lincoln. He wanted to own it. You see, Ford had a problem. By 1922, the Model T was outdated. General Motors was eating Ford's lunch by offering cars in different styles, different colors, and different price points. Ford was losing market share because it only made one kind of car for one kind of customer. Buying Lincoln gave Ford instant credibility in the luxury market. Suddenly, the Ford Motor Company could offer everything from a cheap Model T to a presidential Lincoln. But Ford and Leland still couldn't work together. Within a few months, Leland was gone, bought out, and forced to retire. The two Henrys never reconciled. Yet Lincoln thrived under Ford ownership. The brand became the official car of American presidents. Franklin Roosevelt rode in a Lincoln. So did Truman, Eisenhower, and Kennedy. For decades, when you saw the presidential motorcade, you saw a Lincoln. Ford himself rarely drove Lincolns. He stuck with his simple cars until his death in 1947. But he understood something crucial. You can't build an empire selling just one thing to one type of person. Today, Lincoln remains Ford's luxury brand. And every time you see one, you're looking at the result of one of the greatest business rivalries in American history. Two men named Henry, both brilliant, both stubborn, who changed the automobile industry by refusing to compromise. Sometimes your biggest rival teaches you your most important lesson. Henry Ford learned he needed what Henry Leland had. And in buying Lincoln, he didn't just buy a company, he bought the future. Thanks for joining us at History Sparks today. Every day we uncover stories that prove business isn't just about numbers. It's about people, pride, and knowing when to swallow that pride. If you enjoyed this tale of automotive rivalry and redemption, subscribe so you never miss another story. You know, both Henrys built something that lasted far beyond their lifetimes. Ford built accessibility and democratized transportation. Leland built precision and luxury. Together, even if unwillingly, they created something neither could have achieved alone. What are you building that will last? Not necessarily a car company, but what about the stories you're creating with your family? The traditions you're starting? The values you're passing down? Your grandchildren won't just want to know about your successes. They'll want to know about your rivalries too. The challenges you faced, the people who pushed you, the moments when you had to choose between pride and progress. What rivalry or challenge in your life taught you the most? What difficult person actually made you better, even though you didn't want to admit it at the time? These are the stories that matter. The messy, complicated, human stories. And you're the only one who can tell them. I'm working on creating a free guide for History Sparks subscribers. Something simple that helps you capture these stories. The triumphs and the struggles. The allies and the rivals. Would that be something you'd find valuable? Drop a comment and let me know. Because your family's story of perseverance, competition, and ultimately growth deserves to be remembered just as much as the story of the two Henrys.